Hello, everybody. This is Urza from Free Haven Project, and the other guy is Liquid Zulu. Mm, one of my followers asked me to do this discussion because he's following us both, and we have a lot of similar thoughts. We have a lot of agreement because we are both anarcho-capitalists. But there is one thing we probably disagree on, and that follower said that this could be interesting debate. First of all, I want to tell to the audience that, as you probably hear, English is not my native language, and I don't feel so comfortable in doing such stuff, but I am stepping out of my comfort zone. So I'm sorry for my pronunciation, grammar, and I hope you will understand what I'm saying. About the topic itself, Liquid Zulu is a propagator of ethical ethics of argumentation. It's connected with self-ownership, and I probably can start with what we both agree on. I suppose we both believe in non-aggression principle, and we both consider the self-ownership as the, let's say, primal stone of all of it. So our philosophy is based on self-ownership. Is it correct?
I would probably phrase it a bit differently, but I do agree with non-aggression and self-ownership. I take non-aggression as the root normally.
Okay. The thing which we don't agree on, I suppose, is that you are you are saying that the self-ownership can be derived or advocated by the fact that we are having this conversation, that we are talking, and I don't. I think that self-ownership is. I feel it as a. I consider it as an axiom, but I don't think that you can somehow advocate it through that we are talking or something like that. And it's also connected to another topic that there are libertarians who says that you can transfer your self-ownership to somebody else, which is I believe that you can transfer your self-ownership, and I suppose you don't.
Indeed, I do not. I think it's inalienable, so I think you can't sell yourself into slavery.
Great. So could you please start with this description of that argument? I mean, like, why do you think that the self-ownership you can derive it from what we are talking? I know that argumentation, but I suppose that our viewers probably not. So make it more for them than for me.
Sure. So I think just off the bat, it's useful to clear up like what the law is. Like when we're talking about things like non-aggression stuff, we're talking about the law, and that deals with justice, which justice is just another word for those things that can be argumentatively justified. And argumentatively justifying something is a human action, right? So you have to use scarce means, and because there's scarce means, because scarcity, that means you can have conflicts, which is contradictory actions. So, Crusoe and Friday, they can't use the same stick for two different purposes at the same time. There would be a conflict. And because there's the possibility of conflicts inherent in scarcity, and because scarcity is something you have to concern yourself with when you're justifying anything, you have to concern yourself with conflicts when you are justifying anything. So any legal theory has to assign property rights over scarce means such that you can determine who should win the conflict and who should lose the conflict, because you can't both win the conflict. So every legal theory necessarily has to do this just by nature of what a legal theory is. Now, the way we get from here to show, right, there's a correct assignment and every other assignment would be incorrect, is you first notice that to argumentatively dispute, like, a normative presupposition of argumentation would be to contradict yourself, because argumentation is not void of any normative content. There are certain purposes, certain ends that you're trying to attain necessarily when you're arguing, or else it would just be, you wouldn't know what argumentation was. If argumentation didn't have any specific normative content, you could say that eating an apple is an argument, or you could say that shooting someone through the head is also an argument. But we recognize that these things aren't arguments because there are certain norms which define the boundaries of what actions actually count as arguments. Now, one such norm is that, well, when we're arguing over something, we have some dispute. We have some disagreement over what the truth of the matter is, or some disagreement over how things should be done. And the way we were resolving this dispute is not through violence, but through peace. Right? We're trying to convince the other by exchanging propositions to get to the truth of the matter, right? So that means that argumentation is a conflict-free interaction. Because it's conflict-free, you couldn't propose conflict initiation, called aggression, within an argument without contradicting yourself, because you'd be having some dispute and you'd be saying, right, the way that disputes should be resolved is through violence. Now here I'm going to peacefully try and convince you of this, that the correct way to resolve disputes is by battling over them. It would be incoherent, right? So the only way there are two ways you could drop this contradiction. Either you stop arguing, in which case you're not proposing anything anymore, so you can be ignored, or you change your view into being that disputes should be resolved peacefully, which is exactly what the non-aggression principle is. So to try and negate the non-aggression principle, you would contradict yourself, so therefore we take the negation of that, which is just the non-aggression principle, what we started with.
Well, I see there something like you are putting there one more point, which you are using as an advocation for this, and it is that all have to be done peacefully. I mean, you are we are talking about ethics. We are finding the right ethic, the ethic we will use, and which will be the ethic we agree on. We both agree on non-aggression principle as the ethic rule, but we are not arguing with each other about it. We have to, if we want to advocate it, we have to be able to advocate it even with people who don't agree with us. So I will now play some devil's advocate, and let's say that I don't believe in non-aggression principle, even if I do. What if I tell you the way how to find out who can use the scarce resource is that the people are fighting over it, and the legitimate user of the scarce resource is the one who has the power, I mean physical power to use it. And let's say I'm proposing this ethic as the one we should follow. I don't think it's a good ethic, but I am using it as an example against what you are saying. Let's say that I'm advocating this. So as long as you can hold your body and nobody can take it from you or kill you or make you to shut up or something like that, we are sitting here like this. We are talking, we are argumenting, we are looking at each other, and each of us has the right to use his body, but not because it's our property, but because we have the force to do it now. And now we are argumenting, we are debating. So I am agreeing with this argument. We are doing that, but I don't think that the non-aggression principle is the only ethic in which this is possible, because I just showed you ethics in which we can talk normally, but I believe that you can do argument even if you are self-owner, just because you can nobody is able just now to take the body from you.
Right, so this would basically be like if Max Stirner was to come along and say might is the only right. Basically, the problem with that proposition would be that, well, if there is some dispute, there has to be a dispute when you're arguing. If you truly believe that, well, whoever could win this dispute through force, that person should in fact win, well then, why are you wasting your time arguing? Just get straight to blows. If they win, then they should have won. If you win, then you should have won, right? You wouldn't waste your time trying to convince the other person. It's when you are... So convincing them is the libertarian way to go about it. That's the non-aggressive way to go about it. So they are, presupposing by their actions, by engaging in this non-violent way of resolving the dispute, that is the way it should be done, whilst they're explicitly saying people shouldn't have these non-violent dispute resolution methods. Instead, they should go straight to violence. And that would be a contradiction. And so, because it's a contradiction, it must be false.
I don't think so, because let's say that I'm advocating the principle like the might is the only way how to resolve conflicts. You are very far away from me. I don't know if you are in the US or in Britain or
in Scotland.
Yeah. Okay. So you're in the Scotland. It's quite far away to go to you and force you by violence. For you, it's also quite far to me to force me by violence. So we can do this debate, but not because we believe that the peaceful way is the only way how to debate. We can do it also because it can be the cheaper way how to do that. I mean, I can believe that even if I would believe that the might can resolve our conflict, it's not in contradiction that the arguments can resolve it as well. And because the arguments are now in our discussion cheaper way how to do that, we are using it, but it doesn't mean that we don't believe in in resolving conflict by force.
Sure. So, I would agree that there are two different ways that you could resolve this dispute. You could choose violence, and that might be cheaper for you to do violence as opposed to non-violence, or vice versa. But the main point is the only way you could get to the truth of the matter, it's not through violence, it's through the non-violent approach. That is the only way that you can get to the truth, right? So the violent approach, you're not really proposing anything, and so that's, sort of logically void. It doesn't matter. Like, you're not going to... The only way that you can get to truth is non-violently. So therefore, when you're trying to get to truth, as opposed to just, slam your fist down and get what you want, those people who are trying to get to the truth, they have to presuppose non-violence over violence. It's kind of... It doesn't matter that you could go this other path, and you're only arguing now because you think it's cheaper.
I agree that you can only find the you can only find the truth by the discussion, not by violence. I absolutely agree, but I don't think is the question we are discussing about. We are discussing about that you are saying that if you argument, it means that you are yourself owner in the principle of non-aggression principle, in the meaning of non-aggression principle. But I don't think we are finding answer to a question if you can find the truth by violence or by non-violence. I believe that we can agree that the only way how to find the truth is the non-violent way. Okay, but I don't think this is about it. I think that you are saying that if you discuss, you are yourself owner in meaning of non-aggression principle. And I am saying there are cases in which you can discuss and you don't need to believe in non-aggression principle and the self-ownership in this meaning.
Sure, it's possible that you can be covert about it, and you could hold in your brain that the non-aggression principle is false. But you'd also have to presuppose by arguing that disputes should be resolved non-violently, which is that the non-aggression principle is valid. So you're holding a contradiction in your head, which is possible. People do it all the time. But the point is that their proposition, that's the only one they can drop. They can't drop presuppositions of their action, which would be required for seeking truth as such. But they could drop their proposition that the non-aggression principle is invalid. That's the only one they could drop to resolve their contradiction. And so that's the only path forward. When you have, so it's the only way, like when you have a contradiction, it means that one of your two propositions is false. If you can only ever drop one of them, you couldn't possibly drop the other one, then this one has to be the false one, right? It's like, sorry, I'll let you go.
I thought you finished.
All right, it's like the way you would prove like something like the the law of non-contradiction is you would say, right, in order to dispute the law of non-contradiction, you first have to accept that it is true, and then you can start trying to dispute it. But then if you have to accept that it's true, you contradict yourself, and that is how you demonstrate like axioms in the Austrian sense of the word. If you have to accept that they're true before you even go about disputing them, that is true for the action axiom. If I want to say that men don't act, first I have to engage in human action in order to say that. So I have to accept that it's true that men act before disputing that men act. And it's also true for the non-aggression principle. I have to first accept that disputes should be resolved non-violently before proposing that disputes be resolved violently, which is, it's incoherent.
I agree what you said about if it would be contradiction, I agree with you, but I don't think it's contradiction. Even if I believe that the disputation can be only solved by non-violent way, like the truth can be found by non-violent way, I can still argument and believe that you don't have to own your body until somebody can steal it from you or kill you or something like that. I can, and I don't think it's contradiction that I believe that our disputation can be only resolved by non-using violence, like by talking. The finding the truth can be only resolved like this way, like we are talking about it. But still, I can be advocating a principle that anybody can come there and kill you, or anybody can come here and kill me. And in such a way, our disputation wouldn't be resolved, which just happens. I am not saying that our disputation has to be resolved. It maybe will never be resolved, but I can make the discussion with you. I can say my arguments and still not accept that we are self-owning ourselves in a way that it would be not legitimate that somebody can come here and kill us. Because if somebody will come here and kill us, it could be still legitimate, but if not, we can resolve our debate by non-violent way.
Right, yeah, so you could definitely make an argument that, you know, A and B are having or we're having an argument right now, and I claim, Urza, you don't own yourself. I think that I own you. Right? It's possible to say those words, but the problem with such an argument that I own you would be that I would have to first, you know, assume that you are a separate individual who has the freedom to move your own body and, you know, make an argument, right? So I have to cede all that freedom to you in order for you to even respond, or else I'm just talking to myself, which isn't an argument. So I have to first cede the ground of self-ownership to you before I can dispute that you own yourself.
Just if you put there an axiom that people are self-owning themselves, and then it's a circle argument. Because if you assume that we have to own ourselves in the way of non-aggression principle, then you of course can make the result that it is like that. But we are not assuming that. We can't assume that what we want to prove. There is a thesis which you want to prove, so you can't assume it from the beginning. And I am not saying that we are not legitimate owners of our bodies. I'm just saying that the thesis is that we are legitimate owners of our body, of this scarce resource. But if somebody else will come here and kill us, we are just not anymore. And it was legitimate action. I am not. You are saying that. If I would say that I own you, I can't have the debate with you. And I agree on this. I really agree. And this is argument which I heard many times, but I am not against it. I absolutely agree. If I would own you, we can't have this discussion. And if you own me, we can't have this discussion. That's true. But I can say, let's say that here is another person, you know, Alice, Bob, Alice. Let's say here is some Alice. Alice can come here and kill us. According to the ethic, I am advocating. I'm not really advocating it, but in this discussion, I'm saying that I have the rightful right to claim my body and use this scarce resource, which is my body. You have the right to use your body, and it's also your right, the scarce resource. But as long as Alice come here and shoot you or shoot me, it was legitimate action. Our discussion is over, and that's all. So as long as this discussion is going and Alice is not coming to anybody, that's okay. And I'm making argumentation, but still, I say that if Alice come here and shoot me, it was her right to do that. So so our discussion is over, but it doesn't mean that if I am arguing now, I would be in contradiction with my ethical theory.
Right. Yeah. So I think the problem with that hypothetical approach of saying, right, okay, I accept that we both have self-ownership, but if this third party comes in, then they're allowed to do these horrible things to us. The problem there is that you are basically, you'd be making a particular norm, a particularistic norm. But the problem with that is that when you're arguing, you are appealing to reason, right? You're not appealing to subjective whim. And if you're appealing to reason, well, norms which apply to humans will apply to the entire class of humans rather than individual humans, right? So a rational norm, a norm which could hope to ever be true, would have to be applying to all humans.
Yes.
So, and this is presupposed when you're arguing because you are suggesting that you're aiming at truth. So if you this norm of they're allowed to do X, Y, Z, there's one norm for her and there's another norm for us. That particularization can't be coherent.
I know this argument, and I agree with that. Sensible ethic should be universal, so it should be applicable to every human, and there should be no exception, which I agree with. But I don't like when this is used as an argument to something, because it's another axiom. I think you are just adding here. But okay, I can even for this accept this axiom. I am not just saying that Alice herself has the right. I am saying that we also have the right, but we don't have the power, the force to do that. We don't have resources to do it. So let's say that, okay, Alice is standing here, Bob is standing there. You are there, I'm here. Bob can interact with you, Alice can interact with me. We can't interact together forcefully because we are too far away. My ethic I'm proposing here as a example why I think your theory is false is that the ethic says that we can kill each other as long as we are able to do it, and we can also discuss as long as we are able. Alice is able to kill me, Bob is able to kill you, and it's according to my ethics. But I am not able to kill you and you are not able to kill me because we are too far away. My ethics is universal, definitely, because I'm saying that everybody can do that. We still can have the conversation, but we are not self-owners because you have there Bob and I have here Alice and they can kill us anytime, and it's legal. And this is example where at first we are having the debate, we can find the truth and resolve our conflict, and in the same time we are not self-owners in the meaning of non-aggression principle. So I suppose this is the example which is proving that this theory is wrong.
Right. I think the issue with that norm of, well, when you can't fight, then argue. When you can fight, do argue, is that norm in its entirety. It's not claiming that humans per se own themselves, that, you know, conflicts are per se unjust, right? It's just saying, well, sometimes you should resolve them with violence. But the problem there is that when I'm arguing with you or when I'm arguing with anyone, I have to cede self-ownership per se to them. I can't cede it with like all these asterisks tacked on to the end, because if I'm tacking on all these asterisks, then what I'm saying is, right, I'm willing to sit down and argue with you right now, but at any moment, if I don't get my way, I'll just start attacking you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, that's just, you know, if you're saying right, that would be saying, right, I don't actually care about getting to the truth of the matter. I just care about getting what I want out of this. But argumentation isn't just getting what you want out of it. That is, you know, political salesmanship or something like that, which is a different activity. So if we're having a genuine argument, I want to necessarily, no matter what happens, I want to get to the truth of the matter.
But this is not possible even in normal self-ownership, because you can die just yourself, and this is not true. So even in non-aggression principle, as we believe in, this is not guaranteed, because any one of us can die any moment. So I don't think this is an argument with it. And still, I am proposing your ethics, which says that anybody can kill anybody any moment and is legitimate. But still, in this model, we too can have the disputation. So I think this is just the example against the theory. I think it's I don't see in anything what you just said how this example is not showing that the theory is wrong.
Like, I agree with you that, you know, you won't always achieve the goal of getting to the truth of the matter. I agree with that. You know, there's uncertainty in human action. But it's necessarily the case when I'm arguing that my goal is to get to the truth of the matter.
Uh-huh.
So if my goal is to get to the truth of the matter when I'm arguing, I couldn't then propose, well, my goal isn't to get to the truth of the matter. My goal is to do something else. But I'm just going along with the motions because I think it'll get me to my alternative goal. When you're arguing, your goal has to be necessarily getting to the truth of the matter as such, right? So these, you know, aggressive norms, as we agree, when you're engaging in violence, you're not getting to the truth of the matter. You're doing you're doing the negation of that. So these violence norms, they couldn't be proposed in an argument because your goal is to get to the truth of the matter, and then you're saying your goal isn't that.
But the usage of violence in my example is not by us. In my example, you and me are sincerely trying to find the truth by the argumentation, but Bob and Alice can have absolutely different motivations, which are quite not connected to us. So in this moment, you have universal ethics because we all can kill, but we both just don't want to, and they maybe do. So the ethics is universal because all of us can do it, and it's legitimate. It's according to that ethic. And still, we are doing exactly what you just said. We are using the argumentation to find the truth, and we are not going to use the violence to find the truth. It's so everything what you said, it's still okay with my example, because according to NAB, there could be just two animals. Bob and Alice could be tigers, and they could kill us just like that, and it would be absolutely okay with NAB, and the situation is exactly the same because they can't violate NAB because they are animals. So the result would be exactly the same, but I am proposing another ethics which would absolutely meet all the criteria you are saying. But it's not non-violation principle.
I disagree that it does meet the criteria, because, you know, in your ethic, the only reason why we'd be arguing right now is because we're so far away, right? So it's not self-ownership by necessity of arguing, right? It's self-ownership just because we couldn't attack each other. But in argumentation, you have to have self-ownership per se. So when you're arguing, even if we were to be close together, we would have to accept that self-ownership. That is what it means to seek the truth.
No. I am sure. Well, the point is that you have some theory, and the theory should be universal. If I find one example in which it's not working, the theory is wrong. So I am showing you example, and it's not about that you show me examples which are working, because I absolutely believe they are, but it's about that as long as I can show you one example which is like in contradiction to your theory, and it's a real example, and there is not contradiction in that example, it means that your theory is debunked. So I mean, you are correct that if we would be here together, it would be probably maybe different, but I don't think it would change so much. But let's say, but it's absolutely irrelevant, because I am not showing you a whole theory. I'm just showing you example which is debunking your theory. So this example I prepared is that we are too far away and we can't attack, and we still can discuss. And the point is that you can have a lot of situations when people can't attack but can discuss. And as long as this is true, you have to somehow deal with it in your argumentation.
Yeah, I'll be clear. I understand that you're just proposing a counterexample, right? Mm-hmm. But I think that counterexample fails, because in the counterexample, the only reason we're discussing, as opposed to going to blows, isn't because we want to find the truth and we per se accept that truth-seeking is the goal. It's we're only going through the motions of discussion because we think that will achieve our alternative goal. But if you have an alternative goal, then you're not engaging in an argumentation, because argumentation is per se truth-seeking as the goal, not truth-seeking as the goal in these circumstances and not in these circumstances, but truth-seeking as a goal necessarily all the time.
But we really have it. We do that. But there can be other people who can interfere. And we can be truth-seeking with each other, but here are another two people who can do whatever they want. And it's not like that everybody has the goal, everybody in the world, because there's a lot of people even now who just don't have the goal. We too have the goal. So we are truth-seeking. We are really doing that, and we really believe in this goal. And it's our primary goal, and we don't want to attack each other. And we can't. But what I'm saying is there can be other people who can have different goals, and it doesn't change anything on our goals.
Right. The thing is that if we are genuinely truth-seeking, we couldn't propose that we shouldn't be truth-seeking.
Yeah.
So we couldn't justify, as in argumentatively justify, that non-truth-seeking behavior. So those other people, yeah, they can physically go about and attack others, but they couldn't justify their conduct, is the thing. If they tried to justify it, they would contradict themselves, because they'd be, right, I'm going to be in this truth-seeking, violence-free mode, and here's why people shouldn't be in a truth-seeking, violence-free mode in some situations, right? So those other people are what Hoppe would call a technical problem. They're like animals, you know, either you domesticate them or you need to get rid of them, right? That is these habitual aggressors. They aren't relevant to civilized men having a discussion.
In your theory, yes, but in my theory, it's different. The point is that you are all the time assuming the theory you want to prove. This, what you said, is based on non-aggression principle, but you are trying to prove non-aggression principle. You can't just assume non-aggression. So even in the world where there is non-aggression principle everywhere, people don't have to be truth seekers. You can have a world where non-aggression principle is followed, and there can be some people who are truth seekers and some people who just don't. And this is okay. And if you can have it in your ethics and your world and in your case, you can have non-truth seekers among us. Then in my ethics, I also can have non-truth seekers among us. And the thing I'm talking about is that we two are truth seekers, and Bob and Alice just don't. And we all can kill by my ethics, but we both don't want to do it because we are truth seekers. But Alice and Bob they don't have to be truth seekers, so they can kill.
Right. I disagree that it's circular. I'm not saying assume the NEP is true, therefore step, NEP. Right, I agree that would be circular. But what I'm saying instead is, right, assume that if you're going into an argument, don't need to assume anything at this point, right? Just by the nature of argument as such, if you are arguing, then you are seeking the truth. If you are seeking the truth, then you necessarily have to take non-violent over violent means. Right? You have to think that non-violence is superior to violence. But saying that non-violence is superior to violence, that is the NEP, right? But in the discussion is the only time that you can get to truth.
But
right?
just in the you have to do it, but just in the discussion. So you don't have to do it.
I agree. So you only accept the NEP. You are presupposing the NEP's truth when you are in a discussion, when you're in any argument. Yeah. I agree you're not necessarily presupposing its truth when you're going out and murdering someone. You're in fact presupposing its falsehood. But when you're murdering someone, that isn't relevant to ethics, really. What is relevant is if you are to try and dispute the NEP, you have to engage in an argument. So you have to first assume that the NEP is true, because when you're in an argument, you necessarily assume it's true. And then you can start trying to dispute it. But then you have contradicted yourself. It's the same thing with the action axiom and the law of non-contradiction.
No, this is not true. I can, my setting can be, as long as I am in the discussion, I am considering non-violence as superior to violence, but in another circumstances, I can have it switched. And this can be universal ethics. This is not a problem. And you are absolutely correct that in a discussion, I have to consider non-violence as superior to violence. That's really true. But this is not the non-aggression principle. Non-aggression principle says non-violence is superior to violence in general. But what you are saying and what I agree is the result. Non-violence is superior to violence as long as you are discussing, and those two theses are different.
Right. So the norm what you're presupposing is the non-aggression principle as such. When I argue, I am presupposing the NAP in its entirety, the core of the NAP, that non-aggression is better than aggression. So then if I proposed a slightly modified one, where it's the NAP, but sometimes that's different to what I'm presupposing, and those parts in which it's different, they will have contradictions, and therefore I can't propose this.
I don't think that there have to be contradiction. I can just say that in some circumstances, non-violence is superior to violence, and in other circumstances, the violence is superior to non-violence. I don't think so. I really think that the non-violence is superior to violence, but I'm saying that the theory is that I suppose it's from Hoppe, or I think Hoppe came with this first, and I think that Hoppe said, as long as you argue, you have to accept the NAP as the non-violent, the non-aggression principle as your ethics, because otherwise you can't have the disputation. But I see there a problem, because non-aggression principle is saying that non-aggression is always superior to the aggression, and the result of that what you are saying is just that in discussion the non-violence is superior to violence. And you are right that the ethics should be universal, in meaning like for any human it can apply the same, and this requirement is met, because this ethics I am proposing really is universal in meaning to every human, but it doesn't have to be universal to any action. I mean, the ethics can be different for action A and different for action B, and this is absolutely okay with ethics.
Right, so I think the confusion is that it's when you're in discussion, you are presupposing its truth. It's not that you're presupposing its truth only when you're in a discussion. Like, those are subtly different. You aren't presupposing the NAP when discussing. You're presupposing when you are discussing, you're presupposing the NAP. And, you know, propositions which are true within an argument are also true with outside that argument. Like, that's, you know, you aren't proposing this presupposing this narrowed down version of the NAP for when you are discussing. It's when you're engaged in the action of discussing, you presuppose the NAP.
No, I never presuppose the NAP. Just because NAP says that nonviolence is always superior to violence, but I just never presuppose it. I just have different ethics, which is not NAP, and this ethics says that in a discussion, if you want to find the truth, you can't attack the other. But if you are not discussing, you can do it because you are not finding the truth. So I am never presupposing NAP.
But like what I'm saying is, to propose that or to propose anything, what must happen, logically speaking, is that you have to act in a way which is non-violent, which is a presupposition of the superiority of non-violence over violence when it comes to dispute resolution. You could presuppose other things at different times, but when you are in this truth-seeking attitude, you necessarily, as such, presuppose violence over non-violence.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that you have to accept the NAP in order to
dispute.
No.
This doesn't mean it's not. It's just not true. Look, the fact that you say that non-violence is superior to violence is NAP only in a case that you say this is always like that. But I don't have to. I can say, let's say another ethic example. During the day, it's like NAP, and during the night, it's like brutal violence. It is ethic. It is universal. And now, as we have a day, I presuppose the non-violence is superior to violence, which is not NAP, because NAP says that it's always like that. my ethics is saying that in a day it's true, but in a night it is not. We can have the discussion in a day, but I am not presupposing non-aggression principle, because non-aggression principle says non-violence is over the violence in the day and even in the night, just always for everybody. And my ethics is different from that. But we can still have the argumentation during the day.
Right, so what this would be, in essence, is we're having a discussion and one of us proposes, like you propose, for example, hey, we should engage in violence to resolve disputes at some point in the future, right? So it's not right now. I'm not saying right now, let's engage in violence. Later, let's engage in violence to resolve disputes. Well, what that would mean is, right, there are some points where I think truth-seeking shouldn't occur. But then you're contradicting that you think truth-seeking should occur when you're engaged in discussion.
No. I am not saying that truth-seeking should occur. This is something what you are adding there. It's not the base of your theory. You can't just assume that truth-thinking should always occur. I don't have to say that. What if I say truth-seeking should occur during the day and during the night we should just be violent? I am not saying that during the night we should find the truth by violence. I just say that during the night we are not finding the truth. During the day we are finding the truth. And I can have such an ethic which says during the day we are finding the truth and we can just discuss, and in the night we are just fighting. It's not like that if I kill you in the night I find the truth and I was right in a discussion. No. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that in my ethic you can do it and it means nothing for the discussion. So the contra example now can be, I think I showed you already a few of them, but another contra example ethics could be during the day it's like non-aggression principle, NAP, and during the night it's whatever else. In such case, we can have discussion, but my ethics is not NAP.
Right, so let's imagine we have that discussion and you're saying, right, during the night, if we have any disputes, we should resolve it with violence. And then, we fast forward the clock, it's nighttime, and suddenly, oops, we have a dispute over something. At that point in time, could you justify that we should use violence to resolve that dispute?
No, not to resolve the dispute. I just justify that we can use violence. That's different. Like, I never said that we can resolve the dispute by violence. No, it can't be resolved by violence. I just say that we can use violence, which is not resolving the dispute. It's just not relevant to the dispute. It will end the dispute, as well as we would die.
A dispute could, in theory, be resolved with violence. Like if you think that you should own my coffee mug and I think I should own it, you could resolve that dispute by like thwacking you off the head hard enough that I go, okay, yeah, you have it. Like the dispute's resolved there. But that would be a violent way to try and resolve that dispute.
Sorry, I meant something else by dispute. I meant the argument. Look. If the dispute would be about who is owning our PCs, yes, this can be resolved like that. But if the dispute is about our conversation here, it can't be resolved like that. And you are telling me that if I am having this conversation, I have to accept non-aggression principle. And I'm telling you, no, my ethics could be different. My ethics could be that I can have this conversation during the day. I can have it even during the night. But if I try to kill you during the night, the conversation just ends and we don't find the truth. But I think there are two different things. First thing is to somehow end the dispute, and another thing is to find the truth. But it's not the same thing.
Right, I agree they're not the same thing, but like kind of my point that I'm getting at is that if we have some dispute in the night, let's say you think you should be allowed to kill me and I think you shouldn't be allowed to kill me. If you were to try and justify that you were allowed to kill me, you'd contradict yourself in the night at that moment when you want to do the action.
Yes,
right?
that's true. That would be true. But I'm talking during the day. And the point is that as well as I'm talking during the day, let's say that now is the day I'm talking and I will die this evening. And let's say that I will never get to the point when I contradict myself. So we are here, we are discussing, we are having the conversation. I am telling you some ethics, and I will never come to a point where I contradict myself.
Like the problem even with claiming as just in the day, like if you claimed, hey, at night it would indeed be just for me to murder you, is you're just wrong, because at night, because we know that just means argumentatively justifiable. So if we fast forward to when you want to actually do the action, you couldn't justify it necessarily, and so you couldn't claim it as being just in the day, because you couldn't claim it when you're in the day that, hey, it'll be just for me to murder you later, because what it means to be just is that you can argumentatively justify it, and we know you couldn't argumentatively justify your murdering of me.
But I still can have the debate with you.
Yes, you can.
But you are saying that I can't have the debate with you and still have another ethics except of not NAP and not being contrary, but in contradiction. But I'm saying I do. Let's say that I have this ethics during the day, like NAP, during the night, something else, and I don't see any contradiction in my actions now. I'm talking to you, and I am not proposing NAP.
Right, you wouldn't, in that moment, in the day when you're arguing, you wouldn't be contradicting yourself, right?
Uh-huh.
But the falsehood of it is that you are claiming that it would be just for you to murder me at night. But what it means to be just is that it can be argumentatively justified. So what it would mean for it to be just when it's at night is if, when we fast forward to nighttime and you try and murder me, that you would be able to justify your murdering of me in that moment.
Yes, but what does mean justify something? Justify means it's according to the ethics. Like, just doesn't mean it's according to NAP. Just means it's according to the ethics I'm proposing. So
not according to just any old ethic. What I mean by argumentatively justify is argumentatively justify as such. Like, no matter, we're not assuming any ethics. Like, could you possibly argue this position without contradiction? And you couldn't, when you're trying to murder me, you couldn't argue, hey, I should murder you. You couldn't argue that. You would contradict yourself.
How? Where is the contradiction?
Because we have a dispute over how my body is to be used, right? And you're choosing to resolve that dispute with violence.
No, I don't.
If you're trying to kill me, you are.
But I don't have to do this.
Yeah, you don't have to kill me, right? I agree.
So I can not be in contradiction.
The only way you could be without contradiction is if you were proposing that we should resolve some dispute with non-violence. That's without contradiction, I agree. But if you were to try and propose, we have this dispute, here's why I'm going to try and non-violently convince you why I should be allowed to use violence against you, that would be a contradiction.
But there are two different things. The one thing is I'm going to use the violence against you, and another thing is it's justifiable to do it. And I can claim I'm not going to do it, but it is justifiable to do.
That would be false, because let's imagine you trying to justify it. You'd be non-violently proposing violence as the method of dispute resolution. So we have this dispute, and you're trying to justify your use of violent dispute resolution whilst non-violently resolving that dispute.
I don't know. I'm afraid that we are maybe stuck a bit, because I really don't see that. I really think that there is just no contradiction in what I'm saying. You are saying that there is, but from how you are describing it to me, I just really honestly don't see the contradiction. I really believe that there is no contradiction. So we can maybe, if you would agree, we can go to the other topic with the transferring of self-ownership, if you want, or we can continue this. But here I feel a bit like we are a bit repeating each other, and I don't think you see my point, and I don't think I see yours.
Sure, we could move on to a different topic, but I'm not sure voluntary slavery would be that, because my argument against voluntary slavery is argumentation ethics. So we just get right back into it.
Yes, I mean, I know, but I suppose that we would. I assumed it, but I think that we can look to it from different perspective a bit. I hope so.
But like, wouldn't it just devolve back into the argumentation ethics discussion? Like, because you would say, right, I think that self-ownership is alienable, and then I'd say, no, it's not, and then you'd ask, well, why isn't it? And it's like, well, because we presuppose self-ownership in argumentation, and then it would be right back. Like, we could find a different topic, which isn't necessarily.
But wait. This is probably different, because usually the people who are defending that you can't transfer self-ownership, they don't exactly say argumentation ethics. They usually say you can't control the body.
Yeah, that's a bad argument for it. That was Rothbard's argument, and I think it's a poor one, because you could control the body, right? We agree. Everyone agrees that you can possess another person. The question is whether you can justify that possession.
So in this you agree that the argument that you can't control the body is wrong.
Yeah, it's completely false. Like, you can have like a lobotomy or something, and then they'll be controlled.
Well, for me, this is for me the. I also think this, but I think it's weird that he says you can own animal, but you can't control his body directly. You can control it indirectly.
Yeah.
And I think, therefore, you can't agree that you can't own person, because you can control it in the same level as you can control animal. Indirectly, yes, but directly not. But as long as this is not a problem in owning animals, then it shouldn't be a problem in owning people.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, then I want to discuss this topic, because show me how argumentation ethics says that you can't transfer self-ownership, because I don't see it.
It's going to be very quickly back into the roots. Basically, when I'm arguing with anybody, I have to presuppose that they own themselves. So I couldn't possibly justify that I own them. So therefore, I can't have just possession of another person. And ownership is just possession. That's what it means.
Yes, in that yes. We are probably getting back to it, but I think it's slightly different. I say in that moment, yes, but in future, you can. I mean, we can have this discussion now, and tomorrow, I can sell you my body. Why not?
Basically, if at any point, I have transferred the $1 million or whatever to your family, and then you're in my servitude. If at any point you go, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore, and you just start walking off, I couldn't justify restraining you, because to justify that, I would have to first start arguing with you, saying, hey, here's the reasons why I should be allowed to restrain you. And then, I'm not doing that. I am instead just going ahead and restraining you. I couldn't justify my possession of you, is the thing.
Yes, but in such moment, let's say that I wouldn't be selling my body, but I would be attacking you. Let's say that I would be attacking you, and then you don't have to somehow convince me to not. You can also use violence.
Yes, responsive violence is fine, and there's a difference between initiative violence and responsive violence. I think those are somewhat imprecise terms, but
I know what you mean, and I agree with you, but I think that if we do a contract and I sell you my body. It's your body since that moment. So if I go away with this body, I am initiating violence against you, as well as if I would be going away with your car.
I disagree. I think we have to take these things back to the root of the nature of argumentation, and that's what it means to own something, is that you can justify your possession of it. For external objects, this is, with homesteading, if I am the initial possessor, then I can justify that possession, which Kinsella talks about in his article, Thoughts on the Latecomer and Homesteading Ideas. It's a very good article, the best one on homesteading out there. Basically, if I am the initial possessor of a good, from the first person who is possessing it, then only then can I justify my possession of it. Because latecomers, they would be, if they were to try and justify that they should have possession instead of the first comer, then they would be accepting a mere possession ethic, which would make ownership and possession the same thing, which they necessarily presuppose as being different things when they assert a different ownership claim. So you can't justify. So latecomers can't justify their possession of anything, right?
But I still don't see why. If I sell you my car and drive away with it, you can stop me without convincing me peacefully.
That's because I could justify my possession of the car, because you have transferred title to me.
But
so
justify it not against me, justify in general.
Sorry?
You can justify it without having discussion with me.
Yeah, it's whether you could, in principle, justify it. It's not, you actually. Yeah. I'm not suggesting you actually have to go about justifying all these things. I'm saying, in principle, could you justify it? If the answer is no, then you don't own it. If the answer is yes, then you do own it. And in principle, I could not justify my ownership of you, even if money has exchanged hands. It's an invalid contract.
This is interesting. You can't justify because, yeah, but why is there this? If this is really true, you are right. But why is there this condition? Why to own something I should be? It's not true. If I would be after the lobotomy, as you said, you can't justify it, not even theoretically. So you can't justify the ownership to me.
Basically, like ownership itself is defined as just possession. So it's the person who can justify their possession of it as opposed to other people. So that's why there is this condition that you have to be able to justify your possession in order to own it, because that's what it means to own something.
Yes, but you don't have to be able to justify it to that person. You should be able to justify it in general.
But then you couldn't justify it in general because there's definitely one guy you couldn't justify it to, right?
Yes, but if this guy is after lobotomy, you can't anyway.
If they are, so severely, like I will say that, if they have managed to damage their brain so severely that they are never going to act again, like they are just, essentially brain dead, like a corpse, then yeah, you could agree to have, sell your corpse on and have like a chip put in which would control your body. That is valid, but I don't think that's the same as standard voluntary slavery.
Then what if I sell you my clothes, fall into coma now, but the coma is not permanent. I have the clothes on. Can you take them or no?
Your clothes, sorry.
Yeah, I have my clothes on me.
Yeah, okay.
I sell it to you now. It's yours. Afterwards, I fall into coma. The coma is not permanent. Let's say that it's likely that I will wake up, but I have the clothes on. Are you justified to take the clothes?
Yes.
But you can't, in that moment, you can't somehow justify it to me.
When you're in a coma, you are like in the legal category of a child, essentially. And what defines a child is some form of psychological immaturity, such that they can't express their will. When the distinctive feature of children is that they necessarily cannot engage in argumentation. They couldn't possibly, right? So at least over some domains, right? So you are kind of in that moment irrelevant. Just as I couldn't argumentatively justify it to a rock, but I don't have to justify it to a rock. I only have to justify it to other arguing beings, right?
But why it should be different with the body? But by the way, I don't agree with the child status, because I would apply the non-aggression principle even to kids. But whatever, skip this now. Why this is applying to clothes but not to the body? If I sell you my body, then fall into coma, why you can't take my kidney?
I mean, you could sell your kidney, right?
No. I would say, why can't you take my brain?
Well, I think you could sell your brain to someone, right? I think that is justified. What isn't justified is you can't sell your alive body whilst you're acting and doing stuff. Like, you couldn't. That is what slavery kind of is. You couldn't justify the possession of another actor, right? You could justify possession of individual organs. Like, right now, I could sell to you my brain and say, right, you can have my brain if you want. You know, just kill me or knock me out, whatever. You can have my brain, right? I could. That is a valid contract. But what isn't a valid contract is me saying, right, I sell forever after more. You can order me there and do whatever you want, right? And I will have to obey or under the threat of law, right? That isn't a valid contract, because I can't alienate myself. But if I'm dead, then I have no self anymore. It's just a corpse.
What if I sell you my head, but the head will stay on my body? And in that moment, this is legal, right? I can sell you my head.
Yeah, you can sell me your head.
And if I sell you my head, you can destroy it. You can shoot me in it, and it's legal. Mm-hmm. This is voluntary slavery. I mean, we are in the position where you can say, do it or I shoot you. So voluntary slavery. If I am able to sell you my head, and it's not breaking non-aggression principle if you shoot me to that head, this is voluntary slavery, because I'm your slave in that moment. You can always say, do it or I will shoot your head.
Let's think about this. So you are. I think if it's your head, then you're sort of in possession of it. You would have to say, all right, I'm selling you my head, and, you know, in order to actually go about this transfer, kill myself, right? You know, then once I'm dead, you own my head. I think that's the only way you could, because what I'm meaning by sell the head is, like, you know.
But I was actually in the beginning of this, I was saying I will sell you my head, and the head will stay here on my body.
But I think it would have to be, you know, chopped off. Like, I don't think I can. I suppose, could I sell you my leg right now without chopping off?
Why not? I can.
Then you'd have just possession of my leg, so you could chop it off if you wanted. If I'm selling you my head, you'd have just possession of my head, so you could chop it off if you wanted. But that would hold on. It might be a workaround. I'll have to think through it. But I mean, I don't disagree that there are potential workarounds to get a sort of pseudo-slavery. But you certainly can't, you know, do it in the classical sense of, you know, voluntary slavery.
Well, I believe that this is voluntary slavery, because we can agree about what we call slavery, but if you just sell the head, then you are in the position that you have to do what your master says or you die, and it's still according to non-aggression principle, which means that if this is possible, you just can have voluntary slavery. Because plus, this is the first thing, and the other thing is, when I could do it with the head, I can do it with the head and chest. And if I can do it with the head and chest, I can do it with the head, chest, and legs. So like I can sell, and you're saying not the whole living body. Okay, so I mean I sell everything except of my hair.
Yeah. I think this is then an improper contract to sell your head whilst it's attached. You could say, on the condition that my head becomes alienated from myself, I transfer ownership to you. That would be fine. But I don't think you can sell, like, you know, I couldn't sell you my hand whilst it's still attached to me, because, you know, I would have to have it removed and then it becomes yours.
There is no, like, you can sell anything without moving it, and why there would be, except, I feel it like we don't want slavery to be according to non-aggression principles, so we say that you can't do it, but I don't feel, I don't see any reason why you can't sell anything from your body without cutting it off, because you can sell anything in general without moving it.
Well, there is difference between self-ownership and ownership of things outside yourself. Like, for things outside yourself, you have to homestead them. But for self-ownership, the justification is different, because there aren't just bodies floating out there in nature, which then a soul comes along and possesses that body, right? It's you own yourself because there's an objective link between you and your body, necessarily. And anybody who try and dispute this,
I believe that this link was created by homesteading it. But
well, then, you know, what are you to homestead? But to homestead something, you have to first be, right? You can't homestead if you aren't.
But you are, but you don't have the body in some point, but then in some point you start to have the body is the first thing you homestead, I think.
But you have to, when you have to exist, you have to have a body, right? So, but to homestead, you have to first exist. So you can't homestead without a body. So you can't homestead your body.
You can't homestead, but well, okay, but yeah. So you said that you are homesteading other things, but your body, and your body is special. Okay, but this is no how superior to saying homesteading, like you are saying. You can homestead anything except of your body. The body is the exception, and you are just owning it even without homesteading. But you can also put it like you can homestead anything, but when you are homesteading body, there is an exception that you don't need to exist before. Like you have exception in both ways, and I don't think that one of them is superior to the other. You have just some principle, and there is some one but for the body. So in the one way you can put it like everything is homesteaded and body is just yours, and the other way how to put it, which is my way, is you can homestead anything with your body, and you are homesteading your body first. This is not
the issue with that is that homesteading is defined as initial possession, but to possess something you have to first exist. So you can't tack on this.
This is how you can call it, but you can just redefine it and another way. I think these two ways are quite equal.
They're not, because what I'm doing here, the reason why it's different from bodies and external resources is it's all about the root of what you can justify, what you have an objective link to, and what you can justify possession of. And the way you justify possession in external things is by initially possessing them, but you don't initially possess your body. Your mother initially possesses your body, right? The way you justify possession in bodies then is that other people couldn't justify possessing that body per se, so you have the just possession.
Okay then, let's assume this is correct. I am not sure about it. I would say no, but let's say this is correct. Well, I think these two approaches are equal, and you have to have some exception in each of them, but whatever. Let's say it's like you say. But it's still not an answer to a question why shouldn't I be able to sell part of my body as long as it's still connected? Because whatever, one kind of ownership I claim by homesteading, one kind of ownership I claim somehow else, just somehow else. Well, it's still ownership, and I can sell anything just by not moving it, just sell it, because the ownership is not like you have to move it, you have to do something with it, you just can transfer the ownership without touching it. Why it should be different in the case of bodies, even if they wouldn't be homesteaded?
Basically, the reason is because you have this objective link to your body. You have, per se, the only justifiable ownership of it. You can't justify, other people can't justify ownership of my hand, for instance, because I have an objective link to it. And they would have to presuppose the primacy of the objective link in their own case as well, to their hand. So they couldn't particularize this and say, okay, well, the objective link matters for me, but not for other people.
Okay, but we are getting to that. You just defined non-aggression principle. You find it through that objective link. Okay, but you can.
I didn't define it based on the objective link. I'm defining this on the nature of argumentation, on the nature of argumentatively justifying things as such, and the nature of that means that you couldn't justify possession of any part of another person's body.
Yes, but it's axiom. It's not like you would advocate it from something else. This is what you are saying is axiom. Like, it's axiomatic approach. And okay, if you have, and I quite like it because this moved me more far than other discussions by this way, because as I see it now, your definition of non-aggression principle is different than mine. It's just slightly different, and in like 99% of situations, it's even more. It's just not different, but there is slight difference in the axioms, and as we are coming from different axioms, we are in some cases coming to different I don't know, results. I mean, you have their special kind of ownership, which is defined by your connection to your body, which is objective connection to your body, and you say this is an exception.
I'll be clear. The objective link isn't particular to bodies. It's the reason why you own anything is you have an objective link to that thing. The way you demonstrate this in external things is by homesteading them. The way you demonstrate it in your body is it's just inherent. Right? I'll just go to the toilet real quick. I'll be back in a sec.
To mi přijde jako zajímavá debata, protože jsem asi poprvé zachytil, že teda že můžou lidi, kteří právě zastávají to, že nemůže člověk převádět svoje tělo, trošičku jinou definici napůl. A tím pádem pak dochází ke trošku jiným závěrům. Protože záleží, jakým způsobem to děláme na vlastní těla. I'm not sure if I understood you right. If you are talking about the objective link is any ownership or just the ownership of your body?
So the objective link would be the way you own anything, right? And what it means is just possession. But the way you demonstrate this objective link in the cases of bodies and in the case of external things, you demonstrate that link in two different ways. The way you do it for external things is for homesteading. The way for bodies is it's inherently presupposed by anybody who would try and dispute its existence.
I didn't get you the first time. I thought that you are talking about objective link between you and your body, that it's different kind of ownership. So if it's not, then I have to go a few steps back and ask you again the question, why I can sell my car without moving it, and why can't I sell my hand without moving it? Because if your answer to this question was that there is objective link because you and your hand, and according to what you said just now, I suppose there is also objective link because you and your car.
Mm. But the thing with the link between you and your hand, the ownership of your hand, is you can't alienate that to someone else. For in the case of a car, it is in principle possible, if I transfer title to someone else, they could justify possession of that car. But for my hand, I can't transfer title to someone else whilst it's still attached to me, because in trying to justify that possession, they would have to argue with me first. And if they argue with me, they first presuppose that I own my physical body.
No, you don't need hand for the argumentation.
But I still own my physical body because it's peaceful.
But you don't need a hand for it.
I'm aware of that.
So
I think you're confused by Bob Murphy's and Gene Callahan's misunderstanding of argumentation ethics. It's not you own the parts of your body which are required to argue. It's you own your body because we're having peaceful as opposed to violent dispute resolution.
But you can't. No. You can't. You are misplacing that. You own your body. You want to. This should be a result of the argumentation ethics, and the argumentation ethics definitely just the result of it can be just you own the parts of body you need to argue, because there is absolutely no way how you can justify the ownership of the hand, because you just don't need it through the argumentation.
Right, you don't need it for argumentation, but that's not pertinent. What matters is when you have a dispute with someone and you argue over that dispute, you presuppose they own the entirety of their body because you're wanting to resolve the dispute non-violently. If I, was having a dispute with you, a disagreement with you, you're sitting across the table from me saying, I disagree with argumentation ethics, and I grab your hand and start hammering it and saying, no, argumentation ethics is correct. I'm not peacefully resolving that dispute with you. I'm using violence upon you. But
it's not necessary. You can also do it with the car. Let's say that you have somebody who has really great relationship to his car, and you are destroying the car in the same way as the hand. There's no difference. You can like end. You are saying that if you start to attack the person's hand, he can say like, okay, you're right, whatever. But you can achieve this also by attacking his car.
The difference is that the body is natural property. So based on the nature of argumentation as such, argumentation qua argumentation, both participants own their bodies. Where it's not the case that argumentation as such implies that you own a car, right? So it's that, it's just that.
Well, the point is that there's a lot of axioms you are just adding there, because this is something what you are. Look, I think we should have this discussion maybe again, and in the beginning you will write down all the things you are axiomatically assume, because in this discussion I feel like we started with the axiomatic, like you argument, therefore you own your body, and during the discussion you are just adding there more and more axioms which we are presupposing, like this what you just said. This is something what just wasn't there in the beginning. It just appeared now.
I disagree that I think we have different understandings of what the word axiom means. When I'm having something as axiomatic, it's not an assumption. It's not, okay, right, let's assume this is true and then deduce from there. When I'm saying something as an axiom, I'm saying it's self-evidently true. Like if you try to deny its truth, you'd have to presume that it is first true. It's not just, right, let's assume that there's such a thing as an objective link, therefore I'm saying, right, based on the nature of argumentation as such, there must be this thing called an objective link.
Yes, yes, that is true. If you pre-assume the argumentation ethics, then this is correct. But you can't presume argumentation ethics as long as you want to, as you want it to be the result of it.
I'm not presuming argumentation ethics. I'm discussing the very nature of argumentation that is, you couldn't disagree with it. Like, it's just what arguing is. And then from that, I'm deriving these different truths about argumentation ethics. I'm not assuming that these things are true. I'm basing them on, like, right, if you try to deny this, you have to assume it's true first, so therefore it must be true.
But I don't think this is true. I believe I showed you a few cases in which I didn't agree this is true. I came with another ethics, and I still was able to discuss against it.
But I disagree that these alternative ethics, like the NAP during the day and not at night, I disagree that these are correct counterexamples, because, you know, for that one, you're saying, right, it would be just for me to murder you at night, but that's false, because when it comes to nighttime, if you try to justify your murdering of me, you'd fall into performative contradiction. So it wouldn't be just for you to murder me at night, because you couldn't justify it.
It's not true.
If you try to justify it, you'd contradict yourself.
I wouldn't, because I can justify it during the day and then do it during the night.
But what it would look like to justify it during the day is saying, right, it would be just for me to murder you at night. You're saying that this is not a crime, that it would be just for you to do this at night. But that's false. It's false that it would be just for you to do it at night. Because we can imagine you trying to justify this action when you're actually doing it. Because that's when justifying actions matter, when the dispute is actually at hand. Not before the dispute is at hand. When the dispute's at hand, what actions can you justify?
But this is, it's just not true that you have to be able to justify the action just while you are doing it, because there is a lot of actions which are according to NAP, and still you can't justify them when you are doing them. For example, if you are selling kidney to somebody, both two people are in some sleep, in some artificial sleep in that moment. So when this action is like, I'm sorry, I'm afraid that we should to end this discussion soon, but I want to finish at least this thought. But there is some surgery, and you are putting kidney from one body to the other body. In that moment, both of the people are not able to justify anything of it, and this contract is still valid, even if they are not able to justify it in that moment. They justified it before. They justified it during the day, and then during the night there is the surgery, and they are putting kidney from one body to the other, and they are not able to justify it in that moment.
It would be like, in principle, you could, you know, I could cut myself open and pull a kidney out, right? It's not per se against the norms of argumentation that you know, kidneys can't be transferred. That isn't violating the normative structure of argumentation itself, but violence is. It's the complete negation of argumentation. Okay,
let's say that it's not kidney, it's a heart.
Yeah, still, it's you know, you couldn't Like, that is correct. I couldn't justify to you that I should kill myself, but you couldn't justify to me that you should stop me from, that you are allowed to stop me from killing myself, right? Like, both actions are unjustifiable.
Killing yourself is unjustifiable?
It's, like, I couldn't propose that it's something I should do, but it's not aggression, right?
It's not, so it is justifiable.
I couldn't, not quite. It's, you know, this is going into perhaps ethics beyond law, because law is specifically dealing with conflicts. But there are, you know, contradictions outside. Like, the argument from argument can apply to different areas of ethics, is what I'm trying to get at. And suicide being immoral is outside of law, because it's nothing to do with conflicts.
So you think that a suicide is against NAP, but it's irrelevant because
it's not against the NAP. Like, you aren't initiating conflict when you commit suicide.
So it's justified.
No, like, whether something can be justified is a broader concept than just the NAP. It's not that the NAP says, right, this thing is just, this thing is unjust, and, you know, that is everything. There is ethics outside of law, such as suicide is the prime example, where you couldn't hope to say that people should kill themselves, because you'd contradict yourself by doing so. But that is definitely, you know, it's not a conflict, right? People don't have a right to stop you from doing it. You have a right to kill yourself, but you shouldn't. That is the point.
So you have the right to kill yourself even if it's not justifiable?
Yes.
But why can't I have the right to sell part of my body even if it's unjustifiable?
Because sell implies a transfer of ownership, and ownership is to do with justified possession, right? It's there are immoral things which are objectively immoral, which you have the right to do. Like, it's not the matter of law.
But suicide is also transferring. Suicide also implies transferring of property.
It's not necessarily. No, you're abandoning property in nature, right?
You definitely can. Well, abandoning is also transfer, and definitely, like, if this is just, I'm doing it as an analogy to the other thing. I mean, like, I can abandon it, and it doesn't matter if I abandon it and he immediately takes it, or if I transfer it. It's the same. Like, it's different from the ethical point of view, but in the real world, it's exactly the same stuff. There is no difference if I abandon it in a way that somebody can take it as a first, and there is no chance that somebody else, and if I transfer it, it doesn't matter.
Right, I agree that that's basically the same thing, but, like, you know.
So why can't I abandon my hand and he can take it? It's the same.
Because to abandon something, you have to stop using it in human action, but you can't stop using your hand in your action. It's not possible unless it's off your body.
If I abandon it, I stop to use it. But I can abandon something and then use it.
Right, you can abandon something and then re-homestead it, but, like, you couldn't abandon your hand in the first place unless it was severed. Right, like, I can't stop using my hand. It's not possible.
Yeah, you are right. If I abandon it and I'm still alive, I'm using it and I'm host. Yeah, but this is in contradiction with what you said, because you can't according to your theory, you can't homestead the body. So if this is what you said in your theory, and now you are saying that if I abandon my hand, I homestead it again. So I can do, like, I abandon my body, I homestead it again, and in this moment I have the body in the same state as the car.
Well, no, you can't abandon your body is what I'm trying to get at. Like, you could sever your hand and then it would be a part of nature, right? You could abandon your hand in nature, then come back and homestead it. What I'm meaning when you don't homestead your body is that isn't how self-ownership occurs. It isn't that you are a soul floating around and then you find a body to dip down into. It's that you per se own yourself, and the only way to alienate, say, your hand is by to sever it, because you couldn't possibly abandon your hand, like, whilst it's still attached.
But you said that if you abandon it, it's homesteaded immediately by using it, which is true.
It's not immediately homesteaded. Like, I could sever my hand and then, you know, fuck off in the other direction. Like, I'm not using my hand anymore. Somebody else could come along and homestead it. But I could also come back later and homestead my hand.
Okay, then I can chop off my hand, which is abandoned, then sew it back, which is homesteaded hand. And now I have hand, which is homesteaded.
Mm-hmm.
I can do the same with a heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I can do the same with probably all my body.
Certainly not all of it, right? You couldn't remove your brain and then homestead your brain again.
Well, probably not exactly, but I can definitely abandon organs which I need to live.
Mm-hmm.
So I can definitely abandon some organs which I need to live. I can abandon them and then put them back. So now they are homesteaded. They are not the part of my body in the way you are using this. So
they would become part of your body when you reattach them, though. Just like how a prosthetic is part of your body.
Yes, but they are homesteaded now.
But they still are part of your body, right? The fact that they're... I see what you're getting at, but like the inalienability of your hand isn't to do with the fact that it wasn't homesteaded. It's to do with the fact that it's part of your body, right? Whether it was homesteaded or not isn't relevant. Like, you could have like a Luke Skywalker
but you said it is.
cyborg hand.
Yes, but you said you used this as an argument like half an hour ago when I said why you can't, why I can sell my car without moving it and not my body without moving it, and your answer to this was that because the car was homesteaded and the body not. But this is the point. Like, I think that as we are talking, you are always answering something which is okay in that moment. I think it's contradicting with something what was in the past. Like
I'll maybe explain better. What I was saying with, like, well, things external, you homestead them, but you don't homestead your body. What I was trying to get at there was, well, there's already a widely agreed upon difference between body ownership and ownership in external things. I was just trying to highlight that with the fact that you don't homestead your body, but you do homestead external things. The reason why you can alienate your car, but not yourself, is because you couldn't have other people be able to justify ownership of any part of your body. It's nothing to do with whether it's homestead or not. It's whether or not they can justify it.
And I suppose you will now say it's because of the argumentation ethics.
Yes. So we managed to get back there eventually.
Okay. Well, I think we can close this discussion on this.
Okay.
It was really interesting for me. I feel like I'm a bit losing in the talking because of English and because I'm not used to think in English, but the more I will do it, the better I will be in it.
Yes.
So thank you very much for this conversation. I really liked it, and I believe that our viewers will like that too. So have a nice day.
Yes, it was very fun for me as well. And if you, like, basically everything I said it'll be in written form, published probably by the end of the month, because I'm making a course on this. The written form will be completely free, and, you know, the course, because IP is fucking fake. If you know, it'll be pay what you want for the video version. If you can share that video version if you pay for it if you want. You know, it's because IP is fucking fake. Anyway, there's a very fun discussion.
Okay. Thank you very much, and bye bye.
See ya.